just so everyone's clear, I started from nothing. I was broke. When my wife and I met, I was 21. I had like $500 to my name. Okay, so I just want to make sure that's really clear out of the gate. I didn't come from money. I didn't come from wealth. All I can say from my story is I got really laser focused at something I like to do, and so my ordinary income went up. Okay, that was step one. And most people have that ability. Like, you don't need to make 500 grand a year even. You can make 250, 300 grand. And I think it's pretty easy in America right now, if you're laser focused and you come great at something, to make 250, 300 grand a year. So ideally you can get to that point. Now, before you think you're rich, because you're just making 250, 300 grand a year, live like you're not, and just be conservative and stack it away, stack it away, stack it away. And while you're stacking it away, educate yourself on what can I do when I get a good 50, 75, 100 grand chunk together. And if you know an asset class, you see an opportunity, you could do it yourself. You don't need to go with a group. But if you don't want to do that, you are getting to know groups, building trust, and you're potentially investing with them when they have an opportunity. And so those are the two avenues that I see. Or if you really want to be next level, is you're probably going to start a business. You're going to start an asset and you're going to run the business. And so again, what do you know? And I would get educated. I mean, at the end of the day, it depends what you're educating yourself on. What they're educating us on in school in K through 12, I don't think it's going to do a lot of good when it comes to 2020, 2030 and beyond. My son, I've got my son in school in the mornings, so he has his friend groups and he can do some stuff he likes. And then in the afternoon, I've got him my own homeschool program, because I can see the future is not going to, what they're teaching him in school is not going to be rewarding. It's not going to work in 2030. So the biggest foundation for my son right out of the gate is there's about 13 books that drastically changed my life. Some of the main books were, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the Napoleon Hill series. It's so much about mindset, right? See at the Top by Zig Ziglar, some of the Rich Dad books, and Ask and It Is Given by Jerry Nestor Hicks. And these books will transform how you think and how you see the world. And it's information that is not talked about in school. Like, I can tell you right now, one of the ways you could help kids more in America right now is have every one of them study How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. How to be a likable human being. Because people do business and hire people who they know, like, and trust. If you're not a likable human being, you're screwed. So let's get real about it. You need to create a human being that's likable, that knows how to work as a team, right? And so that's just one book. And so that's step one of it. Two is an AI program that he's working through with a guy online, Dan Martell, that I think has a lot of really great insights into AI. Another part is leadership, just some leadership principles. I went through a great leadership course for a couple years ago that really changed my life. And I think those principles brought in is great. And then athletics, hitting the gym, going to football, golf, just stuff that was fun. And so that's the foundation for year one. We'll see where year two takes it. The reason the jockey matters more than the horse is because they're the ones who are dictating and deciding what to do with the deal. And in real estate, you can give a great deal to a crappy operator and it's going to be awful. You give a crappy deal to a great operator and they're going to survive. They're going to keep your money. They're going to get through. And so you look at real estate, you've got people who get into real estate are billionaires. You got people who went broke. It's what they know and what they do with it. And so it's picking the right human being that is committed, B, knowledgeable, and C, has a track record and experience to actually guide these deals. It's not that typical and that common to find somebody in our world. I know podcasts have been phenomenal for me. There's some masterminds where you can meet some people. It is a little bit of a private world of investing, right? It's not publicly talked about. It's not that easy to get into deals. Sometimes you have to be an accredited investor to get in these deals, right? And that's done by the SEC to protect people so that if they go into these deals, they don't lose everything, but really it's a lot of shielding from some of potentially the best opportunities. So I can see both sides of the coin. The way I got it, I met people was through podcasts. We obviously started our own firm. People can reach out to us at Granite Towers Equity Group.com and contact us. Have a conversation, see if it's a good fit. So that's an easy way. And there's other firms that we can refer people to. Podcasts would be the biggest thing though. Who are they? Is there a good energy fit? Are there other investors who've invested with them? Do they have a track record? And I'll say this, like, if you've got a track record where you've done 7 or 8 full cycle deals and 5 of them have gone well and 2 have not, I'm not going to write that person off, right? I'm going to say, wow, that person's actually had some exits. They've been through some pain. They're still here. They definitely have a unique perspective. So I wouldn't say track record is like you better have 100% track record or I'm out. But those are some of the things for me is personality, what their portfolio looks like. Have they been through a recession? Who's on their team? Like, show me your org chart, right? So I can see who's actually on your team. Are you a real business? And then maybe even tour some of the assets with them. Okay, I'm going to fly in. Can I see some of your assets in person with you? If you've got somebody who's been through a downturn, been through a recession, and they're still here, they're going to be here. because they've been through the most challenging time. It's easy when things are going up. Everyone looks like a hero. Everyone's celebrating.
Everyone makes money.
Everyone makes money. It's when the things go downhill for those that still around, that stick around, that learn the lessons, that have changed their criteria, changed their underwriting, evolved, pivoted, right? And turned into a totally different company. I mean, who we were in 2021 and 2022 is not even comparable to who we are in 2026. I think those, the pain in still being here is critical. So our worst deal we ever bought, we purchased it 2021, and it was in I call it a C- or even a D location. And for us, when we bought it, there was COVID money being given out, and we didn't understand and predict and anticipate how much this tenant profile would be affected once they stopped giving them the money. And so I can still remember the month or 2 month period after COVID money ran out and watching our delinquency just go like this. And it was, what are you guys doing? What is the on-site team doing? How are we not collecting? And it turned into so many people staying home and figuring out how not to pay versus going to work and figuring out how to pay. That's really what it turned into. And so even though we were 93 occupied, we were really 50%. So that's even worse. If you got 93% of the building and 50% are paying, that's worse than being 50% physically occupied, because these folks are damaging the building too, right? You can imagine their living style and standard if they're not paying rent. Probably not the most, easy on the properties. And so we started to evict as fast as we could. Oh, but then what happens is the city comes in and says, hey, you're evicting too fast. We got too many people all of a sudden leaving your buildings. You guys got to slow down. We're going to delay your ability to evict. Yeah, big problem, isn't it, right? When you bought the deal, you put the underwriting in place, and then all of a sudden COVID money leaves, you're trying to evict, and they're saying, yeah, we got to put delays on this. We got 30, 60-day eviction delays. And you're like, well, now you're asking me, our landlord, the investors, the owners, to front the bill of not them paying rent and for the damage they cause. And so, as you can imagine, you have to sell. And so we exited, and unfortunately had a loss in capital. And so the lesson for us was, you have to be in A+ locations. Since that deal, we haven't bought anything unless it's in a location. Yeah, Mike and I would go out to the property and be on the property, verifying what the team is doing, sitting in the office for days, right? Our asset manager was there every week, pretty much all week long. Hey, what are we doing? What else could we do? How are we going to get this delinquency under control? And when you're doing everything you can and you're seeing everyone working as efficiently as you can, but we cannot evict, and you bought during 2021. Now, so timing and location. Those are the two things that will kill a real estate deal. Timing when you bought it, market cycle timing, and location. And so timing was bad, location was awful. And so I don't know what else to say other than, it was a hard lesson learned, and I really would have loved if we could have evicted properly to see what we could have done. But you're there wanting to move the needle and wanting to change the property, and you got your hands cuffed. Saying you can't do that. We got to leave these people here. It's like, how do you win with that scenario? Most of them were, they understood. I would say of the 120 investors in the deal, one was really, really upset. And all I could do is just keep showing them what we were doing by being there. I mean, give them calls. We're on site. Hey, I'm on FaceTime. We're here. Hey, this is our update. Read that update. Here's another video. And that's it.